Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to No Limits, a McDermott podcast.
So let me ask you, Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. A little stressed. Starting to get to the witching hour. I got my thesis due in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So yeah, but I'll get there. We'll make it through. This is helping me get through.
Oh yeah, this podcast gets me through the week. Looking forward to these nights where we're recording. So I don't know, man. I was just watching the news today, and it's like California is doing this curfew, and the second wave is really getting bad. So I don't know. It's just strange times, but it made me think that scene in Total Power where I think it's TJ Burton, and they're all sitting around, and he's like, "Do we enforce a curfew?" And one of the advisors is like, "No, don't put any policy out there that you can't enforce or don't intend to enforce." And I'm like, 10 people at Thanksgiving, do they really intend to try to enforce that? Well, if not, why set the policy? But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I've been trying to. I already have enough anxiety in my life, so I've been trying to avoid reading the news since the election. But yeah, no, I think I guess the one I do agree with you. Like up here in New York, they've instituted a bunch of new policies on like before you come into the state, you have to get a COVID test, well, yada yada yada, and it's like, how are you actually policing this kind of stuff? But I guess the positive to take from it is if it deters one person, I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. I mean, yeah. I'm sure we have listeners out there that would disagree with a lot of these policies, so we'll try to we try to stay away from politics here, but you know.
True. Everybody would disagree with some side of whatever, so it's not our place. We just want to talk to you about our favorite character, Mitch Rapp.
Yeah, but we just want to say wear a mask. I think both of us agree on that.
Indeed, and just be safe.
So, but on a happier note, let's do some Patreon updates. So we would like to do a big shout out to George. He's been a patron for the last couple months, but he just upgraded himself to special agent. So thank you very much for that, George. And we'd like to announce our November book giveaway. So again, winner's choice. We have the options of Executive Power, Pursuit of Honor, Extreme Measures, Act of Treason, and The Survivor. So anyone who signed up to be a patron, will be doing that in a couple episodes. Do we have to do it this episode?
Maybe we'll do. Oh, it is probably our last one for November.
Did we already do it this month?
We didn't do the giveaway yet.
All right, then wait. We have to do it right now. My bad.
We got to do it. Let's do it.
All right.
Let me get the wheel of names. I'm going to put everybody's name, and now George gets his name put into it 10 times for being a special agent. He has 10 entries to win thanks to that upgrade.
All right. So you got your wheel of names?
I got the wheel of names. Took me a few minutes there, but I got it. And let's spin it to see who the November winner is. Here we go.
Are you frozen?
Sarah J. Sarah J. It took a while. The thing was spinning. You know, like the Wheel of Fortune.
Yay, Sarah J.
Sarah J. All right. And Sarah has been one of our agents at the lower tier, so she's been around for a few months. Glad to recognize you. And we'll be reaching out about which autographed Vince Flynn book you would like us to send you.
Awesome. And just to note that all the Patreon proceeds from this month and next month will be a donation to the Prostate Cancer Foundation. So if you want to jump on, just know that your fees for this month or next month will go to a good cause. So yeah.
All right. So for today's episode, I have to go back a few months here, Chris, because a listener reached out on Facebook. His name is Mike M. And he posted, "Please go to YouTube and search Mitch Rapp off book and tell me what I'm watching. Is this part of a full-length movie I somehow haven't heard of? What sorcery is this?" Well, I checked out that sorcery, and boom, on YouTube, there was a 15-minute short film starring Mitch Rapp. or well, this guy Andy McDermott, but playing Mitch Rapp. And I was like, what the heck? We got a Mitch Rapp movie I've never heard of, like not American Assassin. Turns out this guy, Andy, he was a beginning actor trying to launch a career. He already had a few other careers that he had under his belt, but he wanted to get into acting. So he was martial arts, modeling, even a cop for a little while in law enforcement. So started raising some money, was trying to get an independent short film off the ground, starting from scratch. And a friend he knows who's a producer asked, hey, do you know any characters? Are there any characters you would like your role to take after? And he was like, psh, duh, Mitch Rapp,
Who wouldn't?
The boss.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah. And they did it. So I reached out to Andy, and I was really happy that he was willing to come on the podcast. He was really excited to hear about what we're doing. We were really excited to learn about what he was doing. And he made a movie. Dude just made a Mitch Rapp movie.
I know. When you first told me about this little short film, I was like, really? I didn't know this existed. And then I went on YouTube, watched it, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, and it was really great that you got to talk to him. He seems like a really good guy.
Yeah, we're happy to bring you this interview, so enjoy my talk with Andy. Today we welcome a special guest and actor, Andy McDermott. Andy is the star and creative genius behind the short film Mitch Rapp Off Book, which is available for free on YouTube or at their website, mitchrappfanfilm.com. As a full-time actor, host, and influencer in Hollywood, Andy has appeared in over 30 films and TV shows, including national commercials and ad campaigns. In 2016, he approached friend and director Paul Denigri about an idea to produce a short film based on the works of one of his favorite authors, Vince Flynn. And so Andy McDermott became Iron Man, and now he's with us on Mitch Rapp Pods. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know you're a big Rapp fan and reader. So can you tell us how you initially got into the books, and then eventually where did the idea for this film come from?
Yeah, sure. Well, we have to go way back. I after graduating from Northwestern, I started playing soccer. Never really thought I'd be a professional athlete, but just kind of fell into that and kept going with it for a while. But that allowed me to have some free time, and I was not a voracious golfer like a lot of pro athletes or anything like that. So started reading, and this was back in 99, 2000. So I think it was probably Term Limits was the first book that I picked up, and just fell in love. And so I've been one of those guys that has read it. The first couple of weeks it comes out every year or every year and a half, 2 years. So, and that was kind of just throughout all different adventures of my life. Played soccer for a long time, ran a martial arts school during that time as well. And then when my wife and I started our family, it was time to get a real job and retire from soccer when I realized I was never going to be David Beckham. And I was playing for thousands and not millions. Was actually talking to the FBI, the Secret Service, different branches of the military, testing, and ended up becoming a cop because I needed to, frankly, just kind of get some benefits and get off the road and just get started. And I thought that was going to be a temporary gig until I chose what I really wanted to do. Was testing with the Navy SEALs and actually passed their physical fitness test, which was one of the worst experiences ever because I'm not a good swimmer. But ended up just really digging being a cop. And I'm not the stereotypical, ticket writer or anything like that. Hopefully you can tell I always have a smile on my face. I love everybody. But it was a genuine chance to really help people every day. And I worked in Phoenix and was able to test right away for this proactive tactical team. And so was fortunate enough to get on that team because I guess of my physical background and I speak Spanish. And so spent almost all of my downtime in the housing projects of Phoenix. And because I could juggle a soccer ball and I could speak Spanish. Ended up becoming friends with a ton of little kids in the housing projects and with their moms. And the moms would come out and with the plate of tamales and want to talk. And after, 6 months or a year, started to trust me enough that I could say, okay, so who are the bad guys? Who's scaring your kids right now? How can I actually help you? And ended up getting a lot of good work done because of that. And not because of being the scary guy in the uniform, but more being the person that the kids could go to and trust. And so, that was kind of, to me, that's kind of what cops should aim to try to do is be part of that community. And that's a whole nother question, a whole nother conversation, especially in today's environment. Very long story short, in 2011, 2012, they came and filmed a movie in Scottsdale called Everything Must Go with Will Ferrell and Michael Pena, Rebecca Hall. And my modeling agent, I had been doing the cheesy modeling thing forever just for extra money, sent me to this audition. And as legend has it, the casting director said, "Andy, that was a great read, but that costume is effing amazing. Where'd you get that costume?" And I said, "It's not a costume, man. I'm on my way to work. I'm a cop." He said, "You're a real cop?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, it's a cop role. The director's going to love this. Will's going to love it." And so I ended up in this movie. Just spent the day with Will Ferrell and a couple of scenes. He was literally the biggest sweetheart. You would never know he was a superstar. He wanted to hear soccer stories. A big soccer fan. As we know now, he's part owner of LAFC, but this was, way back then, no one knew he was a soccer fan. He had been coaching in AYSO in Beverly Hills for his kids, and he wanted to hear cop stories, and it was all kind of surreal for me. I was literally faking my way through it. I had no idea what I was doing. But end of the night, the crew was giving me a hand because that's a wrap for Andy McDermott. I was turning in all my stuff, and I felt his hand on my shoulder, turn around, look up, and it's Will. He's like 6'4". Yeah. And he gave me a hug and he said, "Andy, I just want to let you know, I hope this isn't the last job you do because I think it's what you should do." Wow. And I always say that's like the worst thing that was like gasoline on a fire. The worst thing you could tell a wannabe actor because I'd always wanted to try it, but it was just never the right time.
Wow. And that was your first experience on a big set like that and doing some acting beyond just the modeling? Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had done some kind of like minor commercials and things like that, but that was the first time in front of a big camera and just, caught the bug. And
that's awesome.
It was less than a year later, we moved out to LA. We had 4 kids, sold the house. We gave up the job and, everybody thought we were crazy, especially because I was 37 years old at the time. And that's not normally when you go with a big family. But we were there in LA almost 5 years full time.
Wow.
And just hustling. And so it was about, 3-4 years into that adventure that I was approached with the idea of doing a short film. I had been a guest star on a bunch of different shows like Hawaii Five-0 and Blind Spot and Training Day and Magnum PI and Enlisted. And was in a few films, kind of these small roles. But I was actually a producer friend of mine who works on big movies, and I was helping him get in shape. I'd always kind of done the fitness thing, and he said, "Hey, I had this idea. Why don't you do a short film where you're the star, and you're like the prototypical action guy, but your curse is you kind of look like a leading man, but you're not Brad Pitt, you're not Leo DiCaprio, you're not Chadwick Boseman, you're a no-namer, but you look like this leading guy, and you want to be this action star. So maybe you just have to be that leading guy and give people the idea."
Yeah.
I said, "All right, great. Well, I don't know how to do that, and I don't have any money." And he said, "Well, raise some money, and do you have a friend who's a director?" So I called my friend Paul, who is in Phoenix, who was working at a kind of a technical movie making school, UAT, in Phoenix at the time. And he had some great talented students, and they had a lot of great equipment. And then Paul's friend Steve, who is a writer and actor as well. So Paul and Steve wrote up this screenplay based on they said, hey, we love the idea. What would you want to do? Is there any kind of a story or a book or a character
Oh, yes.
that is your dream character? And I said, oh, man, no one's ever made a Mitch Rapp movie. I know they've been talking about it. And this was back, CBS Films had optioned one of it was like Transfer of Power or something like that.
Yeah, I think Consent to Kill was in the talks when Vince was still alive, and
Yes.
he was really hoping for that, and that happened to be at the same time he was writing American Assassin, actually.
Okay.
And I think once both he fell in love with what he was writing with American Assassin, and once the studios found out about this origin story, I think they just pulled the trigger on that instead and kind of tabled Consent to Kill. And went with an origin story. And so, that would have been around 2012, 2011?
Yeah,
2012?
yes, that's exactly right. I remember starting to read about that as I was just moving, because I went to LA in 2012.
Okay.
And just like, oh man, that would be amazing. And I actually, talked to a couple of agents, and in LA you have way too many agents. You have a theatrical agent, commercial agent, modeling agent, all these different agents. But I remember talking to one and just saying, hey, if you hear anything about this project, I don't know that I'm Mitch Rapp, but I'd kill to be Scott Coleman.
That kind of just by your face, that would be a good match. That'd be a fit right there. I can see it.
They'd probably still get somebody, like Taylor Kish or somebody. Actually, he was an American Assassin, so he's dead now, I think, right? He blew up on a boat, I think, or was at the end of that movie, I think was driving away on the boat.
And they changed so much from the book, so it's like,
right.
What story are they trying to tell? To be honest with you,
yeah, that's exactly right.
So while you were hoping and kind of pushing and angling to see if something about the way they were doing that film could work out, in the back of your mind, were you still thinking, I'd want to play Rapp in this independent film? And was that seed planted yet?
It was years later, because that got delayed. If you remember that, Lorenzo di Bonaventura, who was the Transformers guy, very successful guy. They delayed. And then I think Vince passed in 2013, 2014?
2013, yeah.
2013. So I think that all got delayed. So this would have been 2015, 2016, late 2016 that we had the idea to do this. Because we filmed, I think it was Halloween weekend, 2016. So late 2016. So we came up with the idea to do a Rapp short film, to make it fiction, but based on Vince's universe. Based on the backstory of Mitch, and basically everything that I had known about him. I felt like I had known Mitch at that point for 16 years.
Right.
And so just tried to become him as much as I could. We raised, about $8,500 from friends on Indiegogo.
Okay.
And had this army of volunteers to help us film. Steve and Paul scripted up a screenplay, which is about a 12-page. They say it's roughly a page per minute. Sometimes a little bit more if it's more action. As you could tell in this short film, it's just basically a 13-minute action.
All action, nonstop.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Right.
Minus that first scene, which does another thing of establishing, like you said, the universe Vince created. Well, it's so important to have that political piece of him trying to convince the bureaucrats and the leadership to authorize the mission. And we don't want to give away too much to the listeners who haven't seen it yet, but who definitely will go do so after this interview. But that was a great scene to have the bureaucrat kind of pushing back against Mitch, and Mitch saying, I'm going to do this anyway, and having an Irene Kennedy there. I feel like that scene set the stage to show you guys were going to respect what Vince tried to do in the books.
Yeah. And great catch there, man. In all the books, there is all of that frustration that Mitch feels of all of these politicians and bureaucrats and red tapes just talking.
Yep. And he cuts through that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then he always realizes that all this talking is not going to solve any problems. Let me just go fix this problem.
Yep.
Yep. and so, yeah, we knew that we needed to at least allude to that, and it's hard in a short film to, incorporate a book, but just kind of, that's why it's fiction. We knew we had to make it up and not base it on any one story, but just to honor Vince and what he created, and try to do some respect to Mitch, who, to me is one of my short list of heroes of my life. So, but just, little facts in there, like the scar that I think it was Riaz gave him originally, and then the fact that, I'm very right-handed, but in the movie, in the short film, tried very hard to be left-handed.
Yeah, I think there's one key scene, and people who have seen the film will know that what I'm referring to, that was very Mitch-esque in terms of the action. I'm trying to remember if you use your left hand or your right hand, but was that the type of scene, or even when he's shooting, when entering the first action scene?
Yes.
Is that when you were really cognizant?
Yep, exactly.
Speaking of getting that right with Mitch, what else were the important qualities or characteristics that you knew had to come through? Because to reflect Vince's work, the number one thing you have to get right is rap. And, a lot of people may agree or disagree with how American Assassin did that. So what was your goal in this film of getting that piece right? What other qualities or characteristics had to come through?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I look at it as like in a small world of alphas, or the alpha wolf or the alpha lion. Mitch is the pinnacle of that. He is absolutely the top of the food chain, and so I don't think he wastes words. He's very economical in words, and he's supremely confident. And it seems like almost everything he says has sarcasm, or he's a smart ass, and he's so clever and so sharp, that he never needs to feel like he needs to convince anyone of what he's saying, because he knows it's right already, but like the interactions with him and his kind of partner, his colleague that, he's trying to rescue in this story anyway. It's still in the most dire life and death. It's still kind of laced with humor, or we tried to anyway, because, even in the books, in Mitch's darkest moments, he's been there, and that was taken a little bit, from, I could relate to that, or I could feel that a little bit. I kind of was in some life or death moments myself. And in my mind, it was always like, okay, I could either be scared to death here, or I could kind of laugh about this, or I could, keep going. And so I think that's kind of a survival thing by, cops or military or special ops or operators that I worked with. Sometimes I think the public is offended if they see a big crime scene and you see some of the operators, men and women, standing around, they might be laughing.
Yeah.
And I always try to explain that, look, they don't mean any offense. They're not laughing about what just happened. They're just laughing because if we internalized, if we felt, if we digested all of that stuff that we have to deal with every day, you literally go insane.
You become
lose
compromised.
Yeah. You can't feel that. You can't take that in. You compartmentalize it and then put it away, and then you laugh about some craziness, and then you move on.
We see that a little bit more with the more recent Mitch under Kyle Mills. He definitely has a bit more, and maybe it's as he's older and he's been through more, a little bit more sass.
Yes,
he's a little more. He jokes around a bit more under pressure. He still is a little bit more lighthearted. We see it in Total Power.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah,
maybe some of the earlier Vince, we might not have seen that level of Mitch, but where your film was made, it made sense that he was more seasoned, more experienced.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think in American Assassin, in the film, I loved that book. And I try not to judge films or anything like that. It was coming out at the same time as we were doing the short film. Just ironically, it was not a competition thing. Obviously, they spent probably, I don't know, 30, 40, $50 million on that, filming it for 6 months.
Right.
We filmed ours in 2 days.
Wow.
With less than $10,000.
Wow.
Uh,
Can you tell
very,
us more? Can you tell us more about that? What was it like being on set? You mentioned you had some students there, so it was really like an amateur crew and getting their feet wet, but it came out so professional looking in the end. So what was it like being on set and with the people in the moment?
yeah. One of the greatest experiences of my acting career, of my life, really was all these people kind of coming together from all different backgrounds to make something really cool and totally engaged in it. And just a monumental dump of energy and adrenaline because we asked for there was a guy, Richard Ryan, who was the stunt coordinator, who was this kind of legend in the martial arts world in Phoenix, who had a bunch of his students, these big burly guys who became the stunt guys, and in this film, Mitch dispatches about 30 bad guys, and so we had maybe 9, 10 stunt guys, and that's why they had to wear hoods or different masks because we had to kill the same guys over and over.
You recycled them.
Yeah, that's right. And I was in LA. These guys were in Phoenix. So we did some of that rehearsing over video, and I was given the stunt, the fight scenes. There's several different big fight scenes. I was given that, and I rehearsed that in my apartment in LA. And I remember the first weekend going there to meet these stunt guys, to meet Richard Ryan. We went to his dojo up in North Phoenix, and I showed up in jeans and a white T-shirt, and I think I had a huge box of donuts to give these guys, and literally just trying to, have these guys not think that I was this, schmuck from LA coming in to try to be this big movie star. How can I humbly, work with these guys? And it wasn't until we got set up to do one of the big fight scenes, and Richard's like, all right, well, we might as well try this because I know we're going to have to fix, 1,000 things. And we filmed it, and, it went off without a hitch. And these guys didn't know that, I had a life of martial arts, and I was, a third-degree black belt and had been in, obviously some fights for my life as a cop. And but, they knew me as this Hollywood actor dork. Just we nailed it. These guys were really good. They were really sharp and nailed the scene. And there was a moment of silence, there, and then everybody just started clapping,
Yes.
And it was like this relief over all of the room.
You were initiated into the tribe.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of makes me think
like
of
McDermott's not going to blow this. It was a.
Was there ever
feeling.
a Stan Hurley character? Was there ever that expert looking over your shoulder? I feel like, or maybe not even with the action, but you had a pretty famous, or at least the most recognizable actor on film that I saw was Jim Morrison, known for his role on the TV show 24 as Bill Buchanan, the head of the LACTU.
Yeah.
What was it like working with him? Was he ever intimidating in the actor sense, having so much experience?
Yeah, he was amazing. I wish I could have spent 2 weeks with him. Yeah. If this was a feature film, then those scenes at the beginning would have been expanded, and I would have killed to spend more time working with that guy. As it was, I spent probably an hour and a half with him.
Yeah.
We flew him in. We had raised enough money. This was a guy that Paul had always loved and wanted to work with, even from back before 24. He talked about some gravitas on screen, and a true professional. He didn't need to look at his lines. I mean, this was a guy that he was willing to come in for, a certain amount of money and do a passion project. I think he felt the passion in me and in Paul, and came in, nailed his work, and flew back to California, So, but he was awesome, man, and that's definitely a character that could have expanded had we had 2 weeks to film instead of 2 days.
To your credit, though, you rose to the occasion when you had to combat him as Mitch. You had to show you weren't going to just follow his orders, and he had such a commanding presence in the film. I would imagine a commanding presence on the set, just with his experience. yet you had to show that you truly were Mitch and you weren't going to cower from that. And so, you made very clear with your acting that you were not just going to follow his orders blindly and stay back or sit back. You were going to go get your friend. And so I felt by having the gravitas of him in the scene also allowed you to show that you were going to play the game equally as well as Mitch, but also as yourself as an actor.
Yeah, right. And I think, we tried to kind of convey a little bit that Morrison's character had been there, 20 years earlier. And, he actually did a good job kind of nuancing that performance a little bit, that he was probably an operator at some point in his life, and now is a bureaucrat, and he's got his hands tied by, the rules that he just says, I forget exactly his line, but you know how it's done, Mitch, you know these rules. And Mitch was like, well, BS,
there were a couple of looks. There were a couple of looks exchanged, like, Mitch, you got to do what you got to do, and I understand, and I'm not going to hold you back.
Yeah, that's right.
But it wasn't stated, it came through with the looks on camera.
And that's one of my favorite things about acting is I learned early on it's an exchange. People think about acting as one thing I don't like is monologues, because a monologue is basically a performance. It's like, I've memorized all these words, I'm going to say all these words, and now you clap for me. That's not really life. If this was a scene in a movie, it'd be about our exchange and me actually hearing what you're saying and then having to react to that. And that's the connection of human connection. And so with a guy like James, when he looks at you, there's just this immediate connection. He's got this eye contact, he's got this power, and so you're right. I had to feel like not Andy. I had to feel like Mitch. How would Mitch be in this situation? Mitch wouldn't be intimidated by that guy at all, but probably would respect him quietly, even if he might not admit it. But it was kind of a really cool moment to work with a guy like that, because you get to that give and take.
Yeah, that's great. It definitely came through as well in the final film. So I've heard so much, but to start wrapping up here, I'm curious, where did the title Off Book come from? It makes a very clear distinction that you're going to still be in the franchise. You're still going to want to continue the stories that we have in the books, but you're also writing your own. You're going off book, made me think of off script. Is that something you were going for? And were you ever in touch with anybody on the book and the publication side throughout this process, or completely you guys were just going out there and going off book?
Yeah, I have a couple of screenshots that I saved. We had some feedback from different groups, but probably there was probably 5 or 6 that really touched me. Probably the best one. I'll see if I can hold this up so you guys can see it at the bottom there.
Oh, hey,
that's Vince's brother Dan.
All right, and he looked like a badass. All right.
Yeah, and then another one from someone who was a kind of a lifelong reader, like me.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was the kind of thing, like, we made this to kind of show, Paul ended up going and starting his own business, not doing narrative filmmaking anymore, but he's filming. He's doing a bunch of different projects. He kind of wanted to show what he could do. Steve could write a screenplay, and I wanted to show, that I could do more than just be the FBI guy who gets shot on Hawaii Five-0. So we had that, but really what I wanted to do was honor what Vince had done for me and for you and for fans, all over the world. He created this universe, which is this, great distraction from life, great entertainment. Like, I look forward to reading the book every time one comes out, and then I spend 3 days reading it, and not wanting to do anything else. And that's been 20 years of my life that I've loved that, So how do we honor that? How do we make something, quick and entertaining? Obviously, it's not going to win any Oscars. It's not the, the Gone with the Wind piece of art. But if Mitch, he had a job to do, and he would be quick and efficient and deadly and go in there and do his job. And there might be a couple of laughs in there. And we did it all in literally 2 10, 15-hour days. And I don't know if I've ever been as tired. At the end of that second day, we were filming that rooftop scene, almost filmed chronologically, because it was this great old abandoned building in Phoenix that we rented, and we filmed through the basement. And, this literally could have happened in this building, because it was this old abandoned, felt haunted building, ended up on the roof at the end of day 2. And that was Richard, who was, kind of the end fight, who was the stunt coordinator.
The big battle. That was the stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. In the epic battle at the end.
Yeah, this amazing guy. And, we did that without, stunt doubles. We did that without padding. And we're both exhausted. And it was literally probably 10 at night on the second day. And I think Paul and I had a conversation like, should we hold off? Should we do this? And I said, Paul, if we don't get this now, we're not going to get it. So let's just get what we can. And it ended up, being great and different than we had envisioned, different than we had scripted. But, in Hollywood, sometimes they call that a happy accident, that, you get what you can. And then those guys, Paul and his team of editors, did an amazing job putting it together in editing and doing some visual effects. A lot of the stuff that you saw there was done with his artistry of visual effects, which is what his company does now. So I had some great reviews afterwards. A lot of people said that they enjoyed watching it. Obviously, it didn't launch me into being the next Chris Hemsworth or anything, but it was, to me, it was kind of mission accomplished, because it felt like we tried to honor what Vince had created and what Mitch might look like, So that was a great adventure for me.
You knocked that out of the park, really did. Finding it so many years later after you produced it was exciting for me, and glad to see that there were I think 3 or 4 other videos on your YouTube page that took you behind the scenes. And so I gobbled that up. That was really great content. Yeah. Well, thanks, man. It's it's awesome to talk to you about it, because obviously there's so much passion behind what you're doing, and now this new podcast that you guys are doing, and to connect with some other rap fans out there, and to be able to tell them, look, I was not trying to recreate the wheel or anything like that. It's really an honor piece to try to honor what they're doing, and not try to combat or be better than Dylan O'Brien or anything. It's a different world, different project. There's no reason why there can't be two things that are just tribute to the man himself. Well, as you said, mission accomplished for sure. Yeah, and Thanks, we hope to hear from some of our podcast listeners once they get to check out the film, see what they thought about it, and we'll definitely loop you in. But how can listeners find you or your work? Where can they reach out to find your presence online? Yeah, well, I'm on social media at Andy What's Next, and a lot of that these days is fitness stuff. I got to work on a show last year, Magnum PI. Got to do still in kind of the commercial modeling world. Up here in Northern California right now, working on a project in a big sports soccer training facility that I got pulled up here to do. But actually took some time during these last 5 months of this pandemic and wrote a couple of projects. One is a TV show pilot, and one is a feature film. So you never know. I mean, you throw things at the wall, see what sticks, but pretty excited about both those projects, and would hopefully at least be able to be FBI Agent 2 that dies in one of those shows. So you just never know how it's going to work. Well, if anybody ever asks, definitely put your name in for Scott Coleman in any future productions. I see that fit like a glove. Yeah, me too, man. That's a dream. Scott is kind of an unsung hero in the books. He's always been one of my favorite characters. Yep. And in a world where Mitch Rapp trusts very few, Scott is a recurring theme for now 15 years or so. So talk about a squared away guy. He's a fan favorite too. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, well, thanks for coming on the show. It was great to hear about your backstory. Thank you for your service in law enforcement and your community policing model. That sounds like something really important for the country as a whole to be looking at in the future. Yeah. And thanks for telling us more about this film. We're so happy to talk to you today. Thanks for coming on. Hey, Mike, it's absolutely a pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I think it's fantastic.
right. Well, we hope you enjoyed Mike's interview with Andy. If you haven't checked out that short film, we highly recommend you to go to YouTube and check that out. So a little bit of wrapping up here. We will be off next week. We're going to take off, give ourselves a break for Thanksgiving. So no regular episode on the 30th. We will, however, be releasing a Patreon-only Wrap-on-Wrap discussion on our Patreon site. So look out for that, our patrons. Probably going to talk about our favorite book titles of the books that we've done. So check out that. And if you want to listen to it, you can become a patron. But we'll be back in December for one of our favorite books, Memorial Day. So
let's go.
I think in our first episode, Mike, you had mentioned that this was, a very important book to you, and so we're excited to get to it. And so December 7th we'll release our first part on the first half, and December 14th we'll release the second half. That's what we're doing.
Let's do it.
Again, we need to thank our patrons, including our special operator, Sherry F., and along with our special agents, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Roman, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, and Jeff. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform, and you can find us online at mitrappod.com or using our Twitter or Instagram handle at mitrappod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch. Just a disclaimer, this podcast is not affiliated with Vince Flynn, Kyle Mills, or Simon & Schuster, but thank you to them for bringing us the wonderful world of rap. And the music soundtrack is Guerrilla Tactics by Raphael Crooks.